Welcome, everybody, to this episode of the RWS Clinicians Corner. I am super, super excited about what we're going to do today, something a little bit different from normal. We're going to dig into applied kinesiology with one of the world's leading experts who also happens to be a restorative wellness practitioner. John Maguire is the founder and director of the Kinesiology Institute, which is one of the world's leading experts in applied kinesiology. He has trained health professionals from 92 countries over the past 41 years. Since 1994, he has been a faculty member of Tony Robbins Life Mastery University, where his students are continually amazed by the profound and rapid results they receive following these easy-to-use methods, some of which he is going to show you here live tonight. His 400,000 followers on various social media platforms find his presentations give them practical solutions for their health concerns. And as an RWS alumnus, John finds applied kinesiology a perfect complement to the RWS protocols to assess clients' bio-individuality and help them achieve optimal health. So welcome, John. We're really excited to have you here.
Thank you. I'm excited to share this today with you. And I really acknowledge you for all the great work you're doing for all of us. It's just spectacular.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, let's dive right in. I want to hear your story. You know, you've been doing this for a really long time. You've trained a whole ton of people. My goodness, you work with Tony Robbins, which is fantastic. So how did you get into applied kinesiology? What drew you to this methodology? And also, what drew you then to learning from RWS and putting these two pieces side by side?
Well, it was back in the 70s. I got a degree in holistic health and then became a body worker. So I was studying humanistic psychology, spirituality, structural work and body work, and nutrition. And I had all these tools, but I didn't know what to do when and what a person would need. I didn't know how to access their bio-individuality. I saw all these demonstrations of applied kinesiology when I was at conferences and at school and hearing all these great things that it was doing for people. And I thought, wow, I would love to learn this. I was at a chiropractor's office where they were doing a demonstration. I said, where did you learn all this? And they said, we studied from the creator, Dr. George Goodheart, a chiropractor in Detroit, Michigan. And I thought to myself, wow, that would be like studying physics with Einstein. This guy created all this. Well, I'm on a ski trip with some chiropractors I was working with in their clinic at Christmas, and they said, hey, would you like to go up with Dr. Anderson and take a year-long certification with Dr. George Goodheart? And I go, wow, that's phenomenal. So I enrolled in his course. At the end of the year, then I became a Touch for Health instructor. Now, Touch for Health is basically the lay approach to applied kinesiology, and I'll get more into explaining all this in a bit. But what I found was that I started getting incredible results with my clients because I could find out exactly what each one needed, not only nutritionally, but structurally, energetically, and emotionally. And that's one of the distinctions that applied kinesiology has. First, it's a holistic system that uses muscle testing to find out what is needed in that person. Now, what muscle testing is, it's a way to access the body's biocomputer. See, we all have an innate intelligence that runs the body. And we access that through the muscle testing to find where there's blocks in the energy systems, in the functional systems, where there's imbalances. And then we can find out what's needed to bring it back into balance, which I'll be demonstrating in just a bit. So with all that knowledge, I became so much more proficient in my practice. It grew exponentially. And I started actually having people fly in from other states that I worked with. And as I was teaching Touch for Health, that's again the more lay version of applied kinesiology throughout the United States, I was awarded in 1986 the instructor that taught more people than anyone else. So I got invited to come out to Pasadena and be on the faculty of the Touch for Health Foundation, where I brought it, was the first person to bring it to Italy, the first person to bring it to Russia. And I've now taught in 17 countries. This has been such a thrill. And the results my students are having is just phenomenal. Now back to Tony Robbins. In 1994, I got a call from the Tony Robbins office that said, we want you to come and present this in our Life Mastery program, where he focuses on detoxing. It's a detox type program where I've had the pleasure and privilege of sharing this for now 30 years as part of his program. And people are getting phenomenal results, like pain going away right away when I show them how they can do these simple techniques that I'll be demonstrating. And so that brought me to where I found out about Restorative Wellness Solution on an email that came. And I watched you and I say, wow, this is a really good piece to add to this, because you really deep dive into things that give us additional information. So with clients, I will often have them do a GI map and do a lot of the protocols that are in RWS to bring it to even greater results.
I like we have a lot of nutritional therapy practitioners here who have gone through that training, many of whom have used a hands-on technique as well called the lingual neural testing. And I always say that, sometimes we have people that fall into camps. You have those people who see the world through their hands. And then you have people who see the world through data. And I love the way that you have bridged these two, because I think sometimes we can fall into the false assumption that it's a dichotomy, that you have to choose one or the other. And really what you're sharing here is that there's a way to merge the two, and you can take that kind of fine tuning. If you can deep dive with lab testing to understand what's really going on physiologically. Oh my gosh, someone's saying you can't hear me well. You know why? My microphone is over there. Is that better, you guys? Oh, I'm so sorry. I totally forgot. I'm in a new place. Sorry, this will all be edited out. I'm so sorry you can't hear me properly. Okay. Anyhow, what I was saying is that basically it is, we get into this false dichotomy that we think that it's either that we can sort of see the world through our hands, and it's that hands-on technique, or we're going to be working with objective lab data. And it's this kind of either or situation, which it really doesn't have to be. You can use that objective data to really kind of understand some of those deeper root causes. And then if you have the ability and the training to work with somebody hands-on, that can allow you to really fine tune. And I like how you bring in the emotional component. We are so much more than just our physiology and just our function. There's an energetic body, there's that emotional body, and you're able to kind of weave these pieces together. So I'm really excited to hear more. And you know what? I have other questions, but I know you have somebody there. You're going to do a demo. Let's dive into the demo and see. And then I'm sure questions will come up. And you guys who are watching, please just pop your questions into chat as well. And thank you all for letting me know you couldn't hear me. I'm sorry about that. Okay. Let's go.
Great.
Over to you.
Well, I've got Dasha here, and I just want to echo what you were talking about. Is the more information, the better. And in applied kinesiology, we say, well, check something from one angle, check it from another, check it from a third or a fourth. And when they all, conclusively say, yes, that's what's going on, then you get your best result.
Yeah.
So we always love more information. Now, Dasha here, I'm going to show is going to bring her arm up here, and now the way we do muscle testing, and by the way, we're going to share with you a link at the end that you can get more training from me for free, because you're RWS people that I really want to support on how to do all these techniques. But I'll be demonstrating them so you can see kind of how it works. Now, muscle test, it's not a strength test. It's a relaxed hold with gradual increasing pressure. And then when there's some stressor that I touch on the body, like one of the Chapman's reflexes that they do in lingual neural testing, then a muscle will go weak. So it's a biofeedback way of saying, how's the energy here? So I'm going to push gently on her arm and see how it tests. Now, what I can also do is see what it looks like when it's off. So when you tell a lie or a stressor, think about a stressor, the arm lets go. So just say, my name is Donald Trump.
My name is Donald Trump.
And hold as I push. And then my name is Dasha.
My name is Dasha.
Okay, so we got a calibrated what's on and off. Now, one of the first things I do, because you mentioned the importance of water, there's a hydration test where I or her can tug on her hair so it stretches the skin. Let's do that and see what happens. Okay, ready and hold. Oh, look, the arm switches off. So that's an indicator of she's lacking hydration. Now, why don't you drink a glass of water here and just notice how you feel right now before the glass, and drink and see how it shows from there. So this is one of the first things we do. We want to make sure the person's adequately hydrated when we're testing, because often a lot of things will test switched off, as we say, or weak, where there's a stressor of there's not enough energy being conducted through the body. Realize that we're also energy bodies. We're checking the energy body as well as neurological switches and acupuncture points. That's what we're going to be diving into today. Let's see how that goes. Now, we'll test again. Tug your hair. Doesn't matter who tugs it. So you're stretching the skin, and hold as I push. It's strong. Now, do you notice any difference out of just drinking that little bit of water?
Yes, of course. My mind is more clear.
Your mind's more clear. Okay,
Yes.
great. Now, there's ways we can test foods, which is one of the great things here, because so much, as you mentioned in the program, our diets are so much a key to where people are stressing out. So one way we can do that is if you smell a food and then test a muscle. That's a great way. So I got something here. Let's start with walnuts.
Oh,
Is it open?
feel it.
Okay, well here,
Not yet.
I'm going to tell you, you don't even have to have the smell, but that's one way to do it. We're going to get there. Okay, now we can do it. The smell is a really good way because it gets into the nervous system, the olfactory nerve. So smell that. Okay, and then hold your arm up and see how your body responds. Relax hand and see what happens. And it's strong, okay? Now, let's have you take a whiff of these. Okay?
Delicious.
It smells delicious. How's your body like it? And your body, whoa, you really went weak. So even, in fact, I think you have some perfumes here, right?
Yes.
You can even check perfumes and cosmetics. And by the way, let's have Dasha share. I saw her, about a month or 6 weeks ago? And we did some testing. Tell them about your skin and what we found.
Oh yes, I had a really bad skin irritation from my makeup, and it was in really bad condition. So we muscle test all how it goes.
Your skin creams and
Yes,
makeups and all that?
Yes, everything. So I choose the best one for me, and now I have no irritation. My skin is became perfect, and I feel much better and more confident as a woman. So
yeah, and then also the foods. We checked her on foods a while ago, and then I taught her how to muscle test. If we have time, I'll show that later. So it was basically her body's feedback of exactly like, for me, I actually test weak on walnuts. It's not a food like we have this concept like one size fits all. Well, at least we don't in RWS, but a lot of people say, oh, you got to do this diet, that diet. And you found the foods that were good for you.
Yes.
And doing the testing like we're showing here. So
and I also lost a few pounds. Now I'm very quick, make decision in the store, easy to pick what is better for me. And it's much easier to come to buy groceries.
Yeah, so I showed her how you can do that. In fact, let's get into that. If you guys are able to stand up, I'm going to show you how we do this. It's called the sway test. This is one of 3 ways that I teach, that I'll be teaching in that program that I mentioned in the end of August. Now, what you can do is with your feet balanced on your, just sway forward and back. So your feet are now balanced between your toes and your heels, okay? So then what I'm going to have you do is think of a happy thought and feel the word yes in your gut. Just feel, oh, that makes me feel so good. And see if you lean forward or back. Now you're leaning forward, which most people do. Now I want you to think in your gut a frustrating thought and go, oh no, and see if you go forward or back, and you go back, right? So that's a great way to do that. Now, again, you could take a food. In the grocery store, they do not like if you open the food and smell it. So keep it in the wrapper because everything has a frequency of vibration. So she holds that and see what happens. And you're going back. And so now that's what she's doing when she shops, as I do. I grab the food and I hold it here. Now, this is a very energy sensitive area. Remember, we have an energy body. We're tapping into that. And the biocomputer, the innate intelligence of the body can tell you, is that good, which is leaning forward, or no, that's not so good, leaning back. And so that's what you found really helps. And she's got, you said your energy's clear, you're thinking clear, is that right?
Yes. Yeah, I I have basically more energy. And
Yeah.
even my husband noticed it, that I became more happier and more energized.
Yeah.
And I start wake up at 5 a.m., what was impossible for me like 6 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And I just feel much more energized.
You look so much. I mean, I saw her almost 2 months ago, and it's like, wow, is this the same person? You're like glowing and bright, and your skin is amazing. So that's
Thank
just,
you.
in we probably did a half-hour session. Now we got more to share. I want to
Hey,
show
John,
about,
can I interrupt and just
please.
ask a couple of questions here? Because I want to
Absolutely.
address if there's any skeptics in our audience, right? So there's, we can't feel what Dosh is feeling, right? We can see it, but I would love you to, for any skeptics that could be watching it either here live or watching the recording, can you explain a little bit like how much force you're using and, like just kind of walk us through the mechanics of it a
Perfect.
little bit?
Yeah. And just to note, I was a skeptic when I first saw this. I said, oh, come on. And I just kept watching and watching. And then I had someone do it on me. And some of you might have had applied kinesiology or other forms of muscle testing done. So just the dynamics is I'm pushing about 4 to 6 pounds. It's not a strength test. And the key is that she has a relaxed hold. And as I begin to push, she meets my pressure. So I'm pushing a little more, a little more, a little more. And it locks. Now, if the nervous system is under stress, it can't maintain that resistance as gradual and increasing pressure comes. So again, let's have you think of a stressor. Think of something that frustrates you.
Mm-hmm.
And as I push, think of that. Her body's saying, oh, that's stressing. It's going like to the midbrain, to the, the hypothalamus and the amygdala, and all this stuff goes on where the body says, we got to go in fight or flight. Now, think a happy thought. Really got one? And now I push. And that's another way you can calibrate this. So sometimes people will fight with putting all their weight. So I tell them it's a relaxed hold. And if it starts to go, just let it go. Now, I want to demonstrate something about the neurolingual. You got any more questions, though? Feel free to bring them up as they come.
Yeah, no, that was it for right now. I just know that some people can think of it as I'm glad you addressed that. It's not like it's not a strength test.
It's a relaxed hold. Yeah.
That's a really important piece. Thank you.
And that was my problem. When I first got tested by people, I was a young 25 something. And I said, okay, I'm going to win this contest. And people couldn't find a way. And then somebody explained, no, it's a relaxed hold. Have the hand relaxed. The elbow's got to be straight. But the more you practice this, the better you get. So let's do another one here. I can now touch areas on her body and just, again, it's a light pressure. The arm down lower is generally good too. So I can point in, or she can point in. I'm going to point right here at the stomach organ and see what happens. Okay, it's going weak. So that's, or let's just say switched off. That's saying, oh, I'm asking her biocomputer, how are we doing in here? And it's saying, not so good. Now there's also a Chapman's reflex for you that know a neurolingual technique, where she's going to touch right where on the left side here. And by the way, we're in a mirror, so that's her left. And as I push, she's touching the Chapman's reflex, and it's also going weak. Now in the neurolingual, they have you put the substance on the tongue, wait for 15, 30 seconds, and then see if the tenderness decreases. Well, for right now, let's have you rub in there, just right in there. And is that tender in there? Feel that. Okay, so there's some tenderness. Now, what we can do to speed that up is there's tests that I can find what's going on there. Now, here's the interesting thing. Goodhart discovered that every muscle in your body is related to an organ or gland, as well as an acupuncture meridian. As Chapman observed, this is related to the stomach. Well, there's muscles related to the stomach, and one of those is the pectoralis major clavicular. Now, as a nutritionist, you don't have to test these additional muscles, but for people that want to go deeper in studying this, I'm going to show you how I can test. One of the nutrients for the stomach is hydrochloric acid. So I'm going to push down like this and see how that works, keeping the elbow straight. Okay, that's strong. And then I'm going to go here. That's strong. Now I'm going to bring them together. Goodhart figured this out. I'm going to push down and out like this, bilateral and see what happens. Wow. They were strong. Now you have no strength whatsoever. Now, because everything has a frequency, there is, let's see if I can find it here, some supplements. Let's see. I'm going to show you here. This is, get my glasses out. We've got 3 supplements, biotics. You know biotics? We've got betaine plus HP. And let's see what happens. She's going to hold this, just holding it in her hand, actually, and bring the arm up like this again. Now, the frequency of this going into her biofield, this is about biophysics. This explains this. Hold as I push, and I can't budge it. Again, take that away. Little fingers. Hold your arms together. And people often get surprised by this. Okay, now we got another one here. We got Hydrozyme by Biotics. Hold that one. Okay. Now it's another product, and I see, oh, it works too. Well, how do I know which one is going to be best for her? Now, this is from a Dr. Beardall, who figured out these hand modes. They're kind of based on yoga mudras. A brilliant man that figured out when a test changes, in this case from strong to weak, it means it's a priority. So when I say, well, which one do I give? So she holds the, let's go back to this one. Hold that. And again, this was strong, right? Hold. Okay. Now I'm going to put my thumb, touch my thumb, the middle joint here with the middle finger, the pad of the middle finger, and test again and see if it changes. Hold. It doesn't. So her body said, well, that's not my priority preference. Now I do the Hydrozyme and I do the same. It was strong, right? Without doing this mode called the priority mode, and see if it changes, and hold, and it totally changes. So it says if you got 2, well, which one do I go with? Her body says it wants the lower dose Hydrozyme, for an example. Any questions? And I'm going to keep going here with demonstrations. Let me know as they come up.
There is a question here, a great one from Zoe. I mean, you're getting lots. I'm going to actually, before we go into questions, we've got several people here. One says, I use this with every client. I love it. Ali says, I've had muscle testing. It was amazing. I learned so much on what my body reacted to. Your arm literally goes weak when it has a negative reaction. It's a weird feeling, and it's something you can't actually control. And Debbie says, Ali, I agree. My chiropractor uses kinesiology to test for allergens and to desensitize. It's amazing how effective it is. My arm goes weak sometimes before he even gets the allergen on my body. I've taken cell core muscle testing workshop, and a couple of others. Would love to bring this into my practice too, but I lack the confidence in my knowledge and ability. So we're here to help change that, Debbie. Zoe asks a great question. If you wear a smartwatch, and I would add to that, if you've got a cell phone on your body, or you've got, one of these one of these things, these pieces of technology, does it interfere with the muscle testing?
Great question. Well, I've got a thing here. These are Bluetooth headphones, and these are regular headphones, for example. And to answer that question, your body, when it's under a stressor, it says, ooh, I got to pull from my reserves. And then another stressor comes on, and we got to pull from more reserves and more reserves. And after a while, the system says, it's like a straw that breaks the camel's back, and it says, I can't handle it. Now, a smartwatch, the way you test this, you don't have a smartwatch, do you?
No.
But the way you would test it is you first have the person hold their arm, then put the smartwatch on, and then test again. It doesn't have to be, this exact muscle. It could be arm out like this. Any muscle really can do. So even regular watches with batteries, they will go weak. But after 10, 20 seconds, it will go back on. So ideally, though, I have people take off their devices. Now, is this on? Why don't you show here?
Yeah.
By the way, there's some things I've seen on YouTube about they show this device that measures electromagnetic frequencies, and they put it 2 inches in front of a microwave, and then they'll see it go, and then they'll say, okay, put on Bluetooth headphones and see what happens. Hold. Totally goes weak. So Bluetooth headphones is putting radiation into your brain, as does cell phones. So you don't want to have a cell phone that you're putting against your head all day long. They have various shielding devices, but for this matter, the more you can, now she'll put on regular phones here, which we test now, and it's fine. But know that a lot of these electronic devices are like putting a computer with electromagnetic disturbing frequencies in your field. So does that answer that question for you?
So I think so. And I think what you're saying here is if you have a client who you're working with and they have one of these devices on them, it would be a good idea to take it off because it might skew the results from the rest of what you're doing. Got it.
I have them take all those things off, and then I'll often have them, like my chiropractor showed me this. I was feeling a lot of fatigue, and I say, I'm on the computer a lot, maybe 6-8 hours a day. And so he had me touch the computer. I brought it in, and I totally went weak. Then I wore a device. You might see some of these. They're called, like one of the brands is called Q-Link. And I've got this little device here. It's like a little, got a couple of them actually, where they're like crystals. There's different kinds out there. I'm not going to talk about it much now, but there are ways of shielding yourself from that. And I actually have a shield on my computer. And when I use that now, I don't get the drain. And a great thing again about muscle testing is I was at the Apple store and people say, what's that thing, that little block on your computer? I said, well, touch your computer and hold your arm up. They're totally weak. And then I said, touch my keyboard and they're strong. So there's a lot of those little tricks. Here's the bottom line, is there's so many stressors in our environment. As we know, we might have time to get into the fragrances, what makeup people are wearing, the shampoos. In fact, one of my associates, and let's just test you on this. Hold your arm up. He has his clients or patients smell their hair. Just smell your hair and hold as I push. Good, you got a good hair care product. Because a lot of people go weak just doing that alone. And I also have them bring in their makeup, which that's what we did with her the first time. And we found her skin cream she was wearing, what, every day?
Yes, foundation.
Yeah, the foundation was totally weak on her when she put it on her skin. And then we said, well, let's try that, not using that. And you saw the result. In a week, your face totally cleared up.
Much better.
Yeah. Even soaps. I mean, you can test literally everything. But the point is, it gives what's that person's reaction, the bio-individuality, which is what we're really wanting to have people understand, that one food can be totally good for one person and for another person, not at all.
Right.
Any other questions? Because I want to show a test kit here that I have.
Well, yeah, there's a couple more questions. As if a few folks are talking about this, wanting to learn more about it, feeling like they either lack the confidence in it, but they also are struggling with how to speak to this to their clients who might not believe in it. So can you speak to that? There's sort of two sides to this. There's the clinician themselves, especially I would say those of us who really work a lot with objective lab testing. That's very sort of heady. It's very scientific, quote unquote, right? Like it's this very objective lab data. And then you bring in something like muscle testing, which can feel, a little woo-woo to some people. How do you marry those two just conceptually, both for yourself in building up your confidence as a clinician, and then how do you address that with a client who might be really skeptical of this piece of the puzzle?
Okay, first question, they're both excellent, is what I do is I, in my training, and I've been training, hundreds of thousands of people now over the years, is just practicing and giving the cues. And I give a lot of extra, but by the way, we're going to have that free course that we'll put in the chat here for people that want to join, where we really work with you to get the feel. It's just like any other thing, like say playing a violin, or I play guitar. In the beginning, all the notes were horrible and I couldn't play it. Well, even Eddie Van Halen was not good when he first plucked the guitar, but practice, you'll get better and better. And also get out of your head and into your gut, because our head often plays tricks. Say, oh, I'm not sure I'm good at this. I'm not sure I'm good at this. Say, I trust the body and we'll get accurate results. And then teaching a person how to be testable is a key, where again, it's not a strength test. It's feeling, relax pressure. And if it starts to go, just let it go. So those are some of the keys, but the more you practice it, the better you'll get. Especially when you learn how to teach people to be testable and you get the right training, which is what my expertise is giving people how to do it. Now, the next question is, I had a story here. I had a client who was, having problems, low back pain. And so I was testing his muscles and found there was a muscle related to low back pain, nagging low back pain, called the kidney meridian muscle, the psoas. And so he was weak on that. And so through Chapman's reflexes and other neurological reflexes and acupressure points, I brought it into full power. And he says, God, I feel great. Back pain's gone. About 3 days later, he comes back and says, my back pain's coming back. And I said, well, come on back in. So there's a way we can show, and I'll show this on Dasha in a bit, where it can show if the muscle's related to a nutritional issue. And it was. And I found it was diet deletion. So I asked him, I said, Bill, one of the things that even says in the Touch for Health book is avoid strong beverages like coffee, which could cause the muscle to weaken. And by the way, a weak muscle, especially a psoas, creates an impingement on nerves where the other side gets tight. So that creates the back pain. It's muscle imbalances. So I got the muscle strong again. Yeah, back's feeling good. So then I said, think about coffee. And as he's thinking about coffee, just the thought alone, his leg goes totally weak because his biocomputer says, oh, I remember coffee and it weakens me. Now I could have had the coffee on him, and I'm going to show in a minute how I do that. But the point is this, just like with Dasha, she could say, oh, this is woo-woo. And I said, well, your body showed you. I'm not telling you. The body showed you this is weakening for you. So take a week and see how you do. Right. Another client had debilitating headaches, migraines so bad she couldn't work for 2 years, had been to Cleveland Clinic. And I asked her, I said, well, did they check anything about nutrition on you? She says, no, I have a headache, not a stomach ache. Well, let's just have you bring in 12 of the foods you commonly eat. And we found about 8 of them she tested weak on. So I said, well, why don't you just take a week and avoid those foods? She calls me back and says, wow, for the first time in 2 years, I went for a week without a headache. Well, that's pretty great. So then she ended up clearing up her diet and going with the nutrition, ended up getting a job, turned it into a management position, and she was just thrilled. Because see, Goodhart says this, where you think it is, it ain't. So getting back to answering the question is I ask people, just be open. And I don't find that often that people are thinking it's woo-woo, probably because they get to see their body response. Any other questions before I have her? Well, let's get you on the table next, and I'll show you some things from there. Keep you posted, Margaret, if we have questions coming up.
We do, but I think, why don't we go to the next stage? Because I have a feeling that some of these questions that are coming in right now are ones you're about to answer. So let's see.
Yeah. Now remember, every muscle is related to an organ and an acupuncture meridian. So we talked about the stomach, and I can poke in here too. Now what I'm going to show you is the finger modes. These are touching the fingers here, the index finger to the thumb, and just show you what happens when I do that. Now it doesn't matter who touches it, whether it's me or her, but watch what happens. Okay, this is weak. I'm going to touch the thumb here and push again, see if it changes. It didn't. Now I'm going to go to here. That's the nutrition finger. If you're taking notes, the middle finger against the thumb, when a muscle switches on, oh, and it does, as I'm pushing, it's strong. That says it's a nutritional factor related to that organ. Here is the emotional factor. If I touch the thumb to the ring finger and it switches on, it says we got to clear some emotions. And hey, it did. So now I know what to do holistically. And this is the little finger touching to the thumb is acupuncture. Oh, and that one's strong too. So now I know what to work on. Now we can still work on Chapman's reflex, but I will show you now. Remember, well, let's just have you touch the forehead. Now this is great for you all to remember that touching the forehead, when it creates a change, as you see, it's strong. That means it's an emotional issue that's affecting the stomach. In fact, we find in kinesiology, often the emotions are what is creating, as you mentioned in your talk last Wednesday, those are a key component to our 6 factors. So we can find out when the emotions are a factor where that would strengthen it. And there's other ways too. So let me show you an acupressure point. Think about this, the thing that's like your number 1 stressor right now. You got it? Okay, I'm gonna push and hold as I push, it goes weak. Now touch right here. this is stomach 1. Right here is the first point on the stomach meridian. Now that's an acupressure point that's used in a lot of systems like emotional freedom technique. Hold again as you think about the issue. Okay, and hold. And she's strong. Now what that means is tapping on this point, as I want you to tap as you think about your issue. Now for you folks, if you have a stressor, you can do this right along with me. Just breathe deeply and think about whatever the stressor is as you tap. In my free course coming up at the end of August, I'll show other stress release techniques that are really good, but this is a quick one for demonstration purposes. And just notice as you're tapping there, everyone, on your point for whatever you're stressed by, see if it starts to get not so stressed. And I'll explain mechanistically what's happening. It's a man named Roger Callahan that first discovered this. Actually, it was Goodhart that came up with these points that related to this. Okay, let's see what happens now. Okay, first of all, think about your stressor again. And hold as I push, and it's strong. Now, did you notice the stress level going down at all?
Yes.
It did, huh? Great. Hopefully it did for you folks too. Now, be aware that, just so you understand here, whenever you have an upset emotion, the meridian system, which is where the bioelectrical energy of chi flows through the body, it will then have a blockage or imbalance, where when you're under stress, certain energy channels go spiking up like traffic jams and other ones become deficient. So when you tap on specific acupressure points, what it does in this case is it balances out the energy. When energy's in flowing and balanced, symptoms go away naturally. You can write that one down. When energy's balanced, symptoms go away naturally. And all these acupressure points, Chapman's reflexes, even the nutrition, which is again a frequency, it helps to bring the body into balance so symptoms go away naturally. So again, if questions come up, Margaret, just interrupt me at any time, and I'm going to show another one here.
Well, there's
focusing
one question
on
here about asking about nutrient deficiencies using applied kinesiology. So a deficiency as opposed to a sensitivity.
I love it. Well, we were going to get to that, so let's go right into it. I'm going to touch right here into her small intestine, and with a strong muscle, keep the arm locked, and I touch in here and see what happens. It goes. Now, the small intestine in applied kinesiology relates to the quadricep muscle. So I'm going to test this here, the strongest muscle in the body. Hold as I push. Oh, come on. Is that all you got? My little finger, the strongest muscle in the body. Nothing there. Now, there are points on the body related to nutrition, and there's one down here for vitamin D, which I can have you touch. These we'll get into again in that class coming up the end of the month, which we'll also have on replay if you can, and we'll tell you how to get in on that if you want. Hold as I push. Now, that went strong. So touching, these are called Riddler points, and I'll explain it. So this is for vitamin D. I touch here, a strong muscle will go weak if I touch there, okay? Great. Now there's other points on the body we could also check, like these are light touch points. I'm going to touch right here. This is vitamin C, okay? Here is vitamin E. Oh, and that's going weak. And then here is vitamin F, essential fatty acids. That's strong. Now, with vitamin E going weak, I can also look at muscles that would be related to vitamin E and see what they test. So one would be the kidney. I talked about the psoas muscle earlier. Legs straight, I'm going to push down and out. Ready and hold. Oh, and that's weak. Now, she can touch that point. Again, it's right here. 2 fingers on that. See if it goes strong. Oh, wow. And it even blows my mind after I'm doing this 45 years now, I think. And isn't that wild? It just totally changes. One of the participants said that. It's like night and day. Now, I can grab a vitamin E here and see what we get. So I've got a Biotics, I think. Well, here's one from Neolife. And remember, everything has a frequency. Our biocomputer of our biofield, it goes out about 2 or 3 inches. And when you put something in the biofield, it receives the vibration, just like a cell phone signal emitting into the body. And if it goes strong, let's see what happens here. You can take that finger away and hold as I push. And there it goes strong. So these set of points, which we teach in the program coming up, they're called Riddler points, Dr. Riddler. And similar to the neurolingual receptors, he noticed that certain points would be tender on people. And then he would, by trial and error, he'd put a nutritional supplement on their tongue and see, oh, while they're tasting it, then the sensitivity goes away. So he mapped out all these points. There's ones for virtually every muscle and meridian. Now, there's also other points. I hope I'm not overloading you with information, but the great thing is the body will tell you what it specifically wants. And in this case, I can check, let's just check a point for nutrition. I want you to bend your knee up here and hold as I pull out, okay? And now I want you to touch right here. This is an acupressure point called conception vessel 17. Let's see if anything happens. Oh, wow. See, it goes weak. This is the point for hormones. Now, on my test kit here, I was doing one for foods, but I've got one here with hormones. So I'm going to pull out vials. Now, these are electrical signatures. They don't have the actual hormone in them, but the body picks up the frequency. And so I'm going to have you put this here and see what happens. Hold as I pull out. It didn't change. Now let's try another one. Let's try this. And touching there again, it strengthened. That was, let's see what that was. Progesterone. I'll get another one here. So this is in my test kit. I get these from, see, I think we didn't do that one here. Let's do this one. From a place in Canada. They're so helpful. I use these on everyone, but that one didn't help. So that was testosterone, but you are showing progesterone. So in essence, there's lots of ways, and I do it from various angles too. Like I said, I can touch a point for it. There are neurotransmitter points, such as the point right here is for dopamine. In fact, I did this on I think it was a Facebook reel, one of the 30-second things, hold as I push. And that's strong. That would show a dopamine deficiency. And I got 7 million views on it. So if you want, I've got Kinesiology Institute on all the social media channels. So this would be for acetylcholine. This is a acupressure point related to GABA. Oh, and that's going weak. And then here's one for serotonin. Now, do you have any sleep challenges with sleep at all?
No.
Okay, she's good on that.
So easy to fall asleep.
Good, easy to fall asleep. Do you wake up in the middle of the night?
No, never.
Okay, she doesn't have that. I'm going to give you guys a tip. There's 2 points. By tapping them, they're acupressure points. When you tap them, it actually can stimulate a neurotransmitter deficiency. So if you can't fall asleep at night or you wake up in the middle of the night, here's 2 points you can tap. Right off the opening of the nose, on the cheek, it's called large intestine 20. And when you're tapping there, it stimulates GABA, which helps to switch the brain off and put you into a relaxed state. It's like the natural Valium. Now, serotonin, which often we have deficiencies of that create depression, all kinds of disorders, obsessive compulsive behavior, eating disorders, that you can stimulate by tapping right where the glasses sit, right off the canthus of the eye. And I do them like tap, 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 up to 100 times. And as I get closer to the end, if I want to fall asleep, I go slower and slower and slower. And invariably, if I'm having any challenges, I'm out within 2 minutes. And I've had people say just doing that, they got the best sleep in 20 years. Okay, other questions? And I got a couple other things we can show here too.
We do have some more questions here. So hang tight. We've got a whole bunch of them. I want to make sure we're getting everybody represented here.
What does it push down and in with the legs straight?
This is a great question. Heidi asks, what if someone is in a flipped polarity? So I would add to her question, how do you know? But if they are in a flipped polarity, how would you go about switching someone back to where their yes is a true yes and their no is a true no?
Okay, a great question. How you test for flip polarity is you put the palm on their forehead, or they can do it as well. And then I test the muscle and see if it's strong. Hold as I push. And if it goes weak, and then when I go the opposite way, the back of the hand, and then it would, in her case, hold, it goes weak, which it should. If it's flipped, then there's a technique for that, which I'll quickly show you. It's called the Cook's hookups. What you do is you cross one leg over the other. In fact, I start every day with this before my meditations, or part of my meditation. You actually cross the hands like this, okay? And then you bend the elbows like this. So they're up here, yeah, just like she's doing. And then you hold that for about 60 seconds as you touch the tongue to the roof of your mouth. And you breathe deeply. Now, after that 60 seconds, and if you're sitting, you would just put the feet flat on the floor, but in this case, bend, uncross the arms and the legs, and then put your feet flat, knees bent, like this. And then you put your fingertips like this. Now, energetically, what this is doing is it's creating energy flow through the body that sorts out that polarity reversal when you do the first one where you're crossed over. And then in this one, you're touching the left and right to connect the right and left hemispheres of the brain to balance that. You do this, again, with deep breathing, tongue on the roof of your mouth. That hooks up the frontal meridian called the conception vessel, and the back. These are reservoir meridians. We get more into that in the courses, but you understand that it's all about getting energy flowing. And why we get polarity reversals is basically from the stressors we're involved with. Like, it comes down to 3 words. If you want to write them down: living, eating, and thinking. So when you're eating foods that are really, as you know, bioacidic for you, or destroying your energy, creating microbiome imbalances and toxing your whole system out, well, that's basically processed foods and sugar, to put it down to a bottom line for most people. And then you got your living. Are you getting enough sleep? Are you doing things that enliven you? Like doing this work, just for me, and I'm sure all of you, it just lights up your life. Your heart sings when you're helping people like this. Do that. And then, as I said, living, eating, and thinking. That might be the biggest of all. And we'll touch on that in a moment if we have time before we end. Let's just touch on it a second now. As I work with Tony Robbins, I've been with him for 30 years now, and we travel together sometimes. He says, John, there's basically 2 things that are the most important. You might want to write these down. Of all his work, it boils down to 2 things. Number 1, what you focus on, because energy flows wherever your focus goes. So are you focusing on, proverbially, the glass is half full, focusing on what you have great gratitude for, focusing on love, compassion, joy, peace, what brings you that? Or are you focusing on negative thoughts? So when you notice a negative thought, focus on a feel-good thought. The second thing is, what is the meaning you make of things? Because things don't mean anything, and I've had many, many tragedies and challenges in my life. But what you want to do is say, wow, what's great about this? What can this serve me? Even if it's by having some tragedy that happened, that now you can help other people get to the mountaintop that have suffered a similar one. Like you, Margaret, you mentioned about how you had all these challenges in life with how you had to solve them for your own health. And now look at the great work you're doing. It's all about whatever happens in your life, make an empowering meaning about it, an empowering story that lifts you up. So that's the thinking part. Next question. Let's see what we got.
So a couple of things here. How you talked about finding the correct supplement. How do you test then for dosage? Is there a way to then fine tune that to go beyond just which product
Great
is going to be
question.
the thing that helps the best?
Okay, now there's a couple ways that I do it. Now, just to note, there's intuitive muscle testing where you're tapping into the information fields rather than a physical on the body. So what I can do is I can take a supplement here. Let's see. We had, see the vitamin E here. So I can take the vitamin E out. Well, first of all, I can ask the body. We'll do it both ways. And I asked her body, give me a yes, arm straight. Mm-hmm. Body, give me a no. Okay, so now I ask, with it in their field, more than 1 per day, more than 2 per day. No. Mm-hmm. So it's more than 1, but not more than 2. So 2 per day. So I say 1, 2 times per day. Now, if you know, and I find that generally works for me. There's another way you can do it, is I can put 1 on her body and see if it's strong. Okay, mm-hmm. Elbow straight. Mm-hmm. So hand relaxed and meet my pressure. That's good. I put a second one on the body. That's good. I put a third one on the body. Oh, it goes weak. So the last one that's strong, which happened to be the same answer, is generally what you can go with. Now, if you're comfortable with that, I find it's good results, but that's how I do it, one of those 2 ways. And again, I like to check multiple ways. Now realize, titrating is often good, or doing what your education teaches you is fine too, or just following what's on the bottle, but that's how I do it for answering that question.
Excellent. Now, a question Brianna has here that is definitely top of mind for myself as well, and I'm sure many folks here. A lot of us work with clients virtually and don't see people in person. So how do we handle that?
That's great. And I'm going to cover that also in that class we're coming up, the 3-hour class. We're going to pack a lot of it in that. And I have many students getting phenomenal results with people working virtually. William Teller talks about this, and just also some of the books I have here get into the nature of the field by Lynn McTaggart also talks about this. There's an intelligence that we're tapping into. There's a lot of books on this. This one is Energy Medicine, The Scientific Basis by James Oshman. You're tapping into their frequency, and it's both through intention, and there's certain phrases we ask where I can then have them think of a food, and then I'll muscle test, or I'll teach them how to muscle test as they think of a food. And there's other ways to optimize this by touching certain places to tap into the vagus nerve to give it even a better, stronger signal. And I had a woman, for instance, that she sent me this incredible testimonial. She was having gastrointestinal distress for a month, and her regular medical doctor was not helping her. So she felt so bad. One day she says, I'm about to go to the emergency room, but can you get on the line here? She was in Florida and I'm in California, and see what you can do for me. Well, it ended up, I would have her touch various places on her body, and then I would test them. In most cases, sometimes I'd have her test. And then we found out where they were weak, what points to rub. She happened to have an ileocecal valve. We found other points on her body that she needed to rub, and we tested for certain foods that would be helpful for her. And by the end of the session, she said, wow, my pain's gone. The next day, she sent me an email and saying, wow, it's like I'm totally better after 30 days of this. And I've had many of my students telling me the incredible results they're getting doing remote work. So I love remote work. And when people can't get to you and you can use these techniques, more better.
So that's really good to know. Can you kind of walk us through, we've had questions here about like, would this replace the MRT? And someone made a really good point of like 176 foods on the MRT. That'd be a lot of time going through every single one of those foods. So knowing the RWS toolkit, knowing that these folks are working with lab tests, how would you recommend that they integrate these 2 methodologies very specifically?
Great question. I like them both. Again, the more information you get, the better. And so I love doing a GI map. I'll mention a young woman that was having a lot of issues. And I was finding things on her through my test kit and through testing and what we needed to clear. And then I said, I'd really like to run this GI map and see, combining it. Remember, the more information you can get, the better. And then it substantiated what I was finding as well as more particulars. And then we were able to find out what factors like nutritionally I could test that when, we went back to the small intestine here, like we're starting to do, and find out what would clear it. We saw some vitamins, but I also have herbal formulas. There's also ways to see if they have parasites or candida. I had someone recently, and it came up candida. Now, it would have been great to do the GI map and it would have shown that too, but sometimes quick, just get to the point. And so I do like to use them both to answer the question when possible. But sometimes the person says, oh, financially, I can't afford it right now. Well, then we can at least start with this.
Got it.
Does that answer the question?
Yeah, very well. Thank you. And Patty's also saying it's great for figuring out which supplements work best, which I think is a really good, it's kind of like that nice adjunct. Is also when someone was asking about the MRT, Belinda was saying here, really good for all the things that we eat that aren't on the MRT, which I think would be another way to kind of work with this as well.
Yes.
Well, why don't you tell us, this is a very generous offer for giving these folks a 3-hour deeper dive into this. Cause you know what I can tell you, I'll share a little personal story. So I did muscle testing way back in the day, long before I became a nutrition professional. I used to work with specific products that used magnets and water filters and things. And I used to use muscle testing all the time. And I would travel to conventions and do these booths. And one of my ways of showing people that it worked is I would get 2 people to test each other. I'd show them how to do it, and then I'd have them test each other, and I wouldn't tell them which was like the good water and which was the bad water. And so and it was kind of amazing how much they could actually, oh, sorry, we've got a little guest visitor there. It was kind of amazing how much they could actually do it on each other. And that you see these big tough guys going, no, and kind of almost arguing with each other, but it actually completely worked. So that's just a little side note there. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. We've got a little guest visitor in the background brushing her teeth. So can you share with us, I think I know what I was going to say. One of the key things that I have learned tonight is how much more complex it is, like how many nuances that you can get to when you can combine those different acupuncture points, those different reflex points, the different meridians, and how finely tuned you could get it. I will admit, I didn't realize that you could go beyond kind of a basic yes, no, whether it be a supplement, a food, a thought, a habit, those kinds of things. So share with us a little bit more about this free training that you're going to do, because I can see that we can go, there's a whole world that people can dive into with this.
Yeah, I'm going to chunk it down because, as you mentioned, it's very vast. And I gained a lot of success by keeping it simple and easy in bite-sized pieces. And I'm going to give you bite-sized pieces in more of the nutrition and testing, but also more of the emotional, because as even the NHI study showed, a lot of people, even with autoimmunity and cancers and other things, the root of it was adverse childhood experiences. And so in my psychological trainings, we get into how you can clear deep-seated things energetically. You don't have to do counseling, though counseling is great. You get right to the root energetically and clear it out, like similar to what I was showing her and other ways that we do that. And then we're also going to go into more environmental testing, because so much of people's environment is toxing them, as you know, phthalates and molds and things. In fact, the #1 cancer killer is lung cancer. And so much of and Laura, who actually turned me on to you, she was saying, all the toxins, she's the environmental toxin expert. And
Laura Bredin.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, no.
No, Laura.
Anyways, yes, I know exactly who you're talking about.
Adler.
Last names. Yes.
Laura Adler.
Adler, yeah.
And how the air inside our house is like 20 to 40 times more polluted than the air outside. And people aren't aware of that. And it's toxing them out. And so, in the deep dive course, we're going to show how you can do those kind of testing, how to do testing appropriately, and then getting some of the acupressure points that can show things. Just a little bite size to not overwhelm you, to where you can go away and the next day on Monday morning, put it into your practice. So that's what we'll be doing.
Well, thank you so much. You've got the link for that. We will pop it into the notes for those of you watching on YouTube. It is akfornutritionists.com. It's here in the chat as well. Thank you so much, John. This has been fantastic. I think everybody's learned a lot, lots of great questions and interaction here. I love having the demo. It's so helpful to actually see this stuff live. That's wonderful. Thank you so much for taking the time to come and hang out with us tonight.
My pleasure. Thank you.
So everyone, we will be back here in a couple of weeks. It's going to be a very different conversation in 2 weeks. We've got JJ Virgin coming to do a deep dive on some business training. So if you haven't been there already, go into the Facebook group, the RWS practitioner Facebook group. I put a post in there today asking, what are your biggest questions? She is one of the top nutrition professionals and business gurus. She has built an 8-figure nutrition business. So this is an incredible opportunity to ask one of the powerhouses in our field some great questions. So please go in there and ask your questions. We will be back with her in a couple of weeks. Again, John, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for being patient with me and all of my technical and interruption challenges. We are in a new environment and figuring out all the things. So thank you so much. Have a great night, everybody.